Ever heard that Idaho's capital is the sole one in the nation warmed by geothermal heat drawn from hot springs buried 3,000 feet underground? Or that a minuscule corner of the state hides such a wild legal quirk you could, in theory, get away with murder there scot-free? And get this, the most iconic woman from U.S. exploration history entered the world right in Idaho, paving the way for a horse breed that's now globally famous. Idaho's tucked away some of America's wildest tales amid its peaks and spud patches. The state's past, rocks, and layout are way weirder than folks realize. Buckle up for 30 mind-blowing geography facts about Idaho you probably missed. Fact 30. Idaho's outline happened by pure chance. Check any map, and the state's borders look totally random. Up north, it's a skinny panhandle just 45 miles across at its narrowest spots, while the bottom half sprawls into a fat rectangle. This odd shape wasn't planned. It was what's left behind. Back in 1863, when Idaho Territory got formed, Oregon and Washington had already snatched their western edges, shoving Idaho into a jagged line. Then in 1864, Montana Territory grabbed a big eastern slice along the Bitterroot Divide. What stayed was scraps no one else wanted, pieced into a state. Some geographers liken it to a lumberjack's boot or a pistol, but really it's just boundaries born from political deals, ignoring any natural features. Fact 29. The state straddles 2 time zones. Idaho's among just 13 states juggling dual time zones at once, with the line slicing down the middle via the Salmon River. North of it, including panhandle spots like Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, and Moscow, sticks to Pacific time. Southward, places like Boise, Twin Falls, Pocatello, and Idaho Falls follow Mountain Time. Drive from Lewiston to Riggins heading south, and you hit an unseen border that steals an hour without notice. The divide stems from the Panhandle's business and social links, pointing west to Spokane, Washington, instead of south to Boise. That river Lewis and Clark deemed uncrossable didn't just split the wild, it split the day too. Fact 28. The lone state house heated from below. Boise's Idaho state capitol stands alone as the country's only one fully powered by underground geothermal heat. It pulls warmth from springs about 3,000 feet down, with the setup installed from 1905 to 1920 for over $2 million. Now that same network warms other nearby government spots in the Capitol Mall district, turning downtown Boise into one of the few U.S. cities with active geothermal heating across blocks. Those subterranean springs tie straight to the volcanic forces behind the Snake River Plain overhead. A whole urban zone perched on pipes, channeling leftover heat from old lava. Fact 27. Idaho's got a murder-free zone baked into its constitution. Deep in Yellowstone National Park's southeast edge, where about 1% dips into Idaho, lies a narrow strip lawyers dub the Zone of Death. A University of Michigan prof floated the idea in 2005. The Sixth Amendment demands juries from the crime's state and district. This Idaho patch falls under Wyoming's federal court, but sits in Idaho. With 0 residents, you couldn't legally impanel a jury of locals from there. So theoretically, any crime in that exact spot goes unpunished. Congress knows about it for years, but hasn't patched it. Fact 26. Sacagawea was born in Idaho. The famed interpreter, navigator, and diplomatic liaison for the Lewis and Clark expedition, a Lemhi Shoshone woman, was born around 1788 in present-day Lemhi County, Idaho, close to the modern town of Tendoy. In 1805, When Lewis and Clark reached the area, she reunited with her brother Kamiawait, now chief of the Lemhi Shoshone, an encounter that provided the critical horses needed to traverse the Rockies. Historians view this reunion as one of the expedition's pivotal moments. Near Salmon, Idaho, a marker honors her birthplace, while the Sacagawea Interpretive, Cultural, and Educational Center safeguards the Agai Dika Shoshone Bannock account of her life, including the tribe's authentic spelling of her name. Fact 25. The Nez Perce created one of history's standout horse breeds. In northern Idaho, the Nez Perce refined the Appaloosa, Idaho's state horse, into North America's most deliberately bred and versatile equine lines. After Spaniards brought horses back to the Americas in the 1600s and 1700s, the Nez Perce obtained them and launched an advanced breeding effort focused on stamina, smarts, velocity, and the signature spotted patterns. Pioneers dubbed them Palouse horses after the Palouse River in Nez Perce lands, with the name eventually morphing into Appaloosa. The U.S. Army wiped out nearly all of the Nez Perce herd after the 1877 war, pushing the breed to the brink of extinction. Today's revival initiatives, like a tribal program blending Appaloosas with the ancient Central Asian Ukhal Teke, aim to recapture the traits the Nez Perce honed across generations. Fact 24. The 1910 Great Fire, America's biggest wildfire, turned an Idaho Ranger into a legend. Between August 20th and 21st, 1910, multiple blazes in northern Idaho and western Montana fused into a massive firestorm fueled by gale-force winds. Over 36 to 48 hours, it scorched about 3 million acres, bigger than Connecticut, claiming 85 lives, mostly firefighters. It holds the record as the largest wildfire in U.S. history. Amid the chaos, Forest Service Ranger Edward Pulaski guided 45 firefighters into an old mine tunnel outside Wallace, Idaho, barricading them inside at gunpoint overnight as flames engulfed the surroundings, preserving all but 5. The next year, he fused an axe with an adze to invent a fire-break building tool that's become standard for wildland crews worldwide, the Pulaski axe. Fact 23. Wallace, Idaho, proclaimed itself the universe's center and backed it up. This impeccably preserved Victorian mining town nestles in a tight canyon within the northern Panhandle's Silver Valley. In 2004, the mayor officially named it the center of the universe, installing a downtown manhole cover etched with the claim, which he called utterly impossible to refute. Wallace boasts a real geographic feat, too. It lies right on Interstate 90, the final interstate highway system city to get bypassed. Instead of raising its vintage Victorian core for the road, builders erected a viaduct soaring over downtown. For decades, I-90 ran at street level through Wallace's heart, the sole at-grade stretch on the cross-country route, until the viaduct opened in 1991. Fact 22. Idaho grows more trout than any other place globally. Roughly 75% of U.S. market-raised trout hail from a key segment of the Snake River in south-central Idaho's Hagerman Valley by Twin Falls. The perfect storm of conditions there is strikingly precise. Vast, steady flows of 58 degrees Fahrenheit spring water gushing year-round from Snake River Canyon walls, prime for rainbow trout, paired with a wide, level canyon base for expansive raceway farms and easy access to big transport hubs. In the Thousand Springs region, the Snake River Plain aquifer surges from basalt cliffs, via countless massive spring vents, generating perfect conditions unmatched on such a vast scale anywhere else globally. The whole U.S. trout farming sector basically hinges on a single Idaho canyon. Fact 21. Lentils may actually be Idaho's priciest crop. Potatoes have earned the state worldwide fame, yet Idaho stands as the world's low-key lentil powerhouse. Northern Idaho and eastern Washington's Palouse zone yields roughly 90% of all U.S.-grown lentils, positioning America as a leading global exporter. Those gently rolling volcanic hills in the Palouse hold some of the planet's deepest, richest topsoil, accumulated from wind-blown loess deposits over hundreds of thousands of years, and they've proven exceptionally ideal for dryland pulse farming. Pullman, Washington, right across the Idaho line, puts on the National Lentil Festival, though most of the nation's lentil fields occupy Idaho land, cresting hills that resemble green swells over one of Earth's top dryland agricultural expanses. Fact 20. Boise boasts the densest Basque population outside Europe. Stemming from the Basque country's shepherding heritage and Idaho's vast high desert ranges, Boise built the biggest Basque enclave in the continental U.S. during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Basque herders flocked here because the landscape and labor echoed their Pyrenees homeland, and their roots grew deep. These days, Boise's downtown Basque block, spanning 2 city blocks with Basque eateries, a cultural hub, a fronton for the handball sport pelota, and the Basque Museum and Cultural Center, represents the most intense hub of Basque heritage beyond Spain and France's Basque country. The group has preserved its language, food, and customs through 4 or 5 generations in a high desert town whose terrain and weather align more closely with the Pyrenees foothills than most realize. Fact 19. Idaho's state seal stands alone as the nation's only one crafted by a woman. As Idaho geared up for statehood in 1890, it ran a contest for the official seal. Emma Edwards Green entered a design using just her initials, supposedly to mask her gender amid expected bias, and took first place. Her artwork showed a woman with justice's scales beside a miner, encircled by symbols of Idaho's riches, like mountains, woods, and the Snake River. The justice and liberty figure was intentionally female. Once the judges learned Emma Edwards was female, they upheld the victory. Idaho remains the sole state with a seal designed by a woman, honoring Emma Edwards Green as one of its most pivotal yet understated historical icons. Fact 18. Idaho contains over 107,000 miles of rivers and streams. Stretched end to end, every river, creek, and stream in Idaho would circle Earth's equator more than 4 times. That 107,000-plus miles of flowing water is an astonishing figure for a landlocked state, all thanks to its dramatic topography. Countless mountain chains feed into river networks, carving through basalt gorges, glacial troughs, and lava plains. Idaho leads the nation in miles of navigable whitewater, with about 3,500 miles of Class 2 to Class 5 rapids. California, a distant second, lags by over 1,700 miles. Plus, it's the only landlocked state in the lower 48 reachable by ocean-going ships. Big freighters can travel the Columbia and Snake Rivers from the Pacific to Lewiston, Idaho, 465 miles upstream, making Lewiston the West Coast's deepest inland seaport. Fact 17. Lewiston, Idaho, functions as a seaport 300 miles from the sea. Nestled in a canyon where the Snake and Clearwater rivers meet, Lewiston lies at just 710 feet above sea level, Idaho's lowest spot, and surprisingly ranks among America's remotest deep-water ports inland. Dams and navigation locks on the Snake and Columbia rivers let ocean-going barges and cargo ships navigate from the Pacific Ocean in Astoria, Oregon, far upstream to Lewiston, traversing more than 460 miles of inland waterways. Grain harvested from farms in Idaho and eastern Washington heads out through Lewiston's port to Asian markets. Back in 1805, when Lewis and Clark arrived at the Snake and Clearwater confluence, they faced a dramatically different environment from their earlier travels. Clark noted the quick change to vast plains and softer weather as among the expedition's most dramatic turns. These days, that exact spot functions as a busy international port. Fact 16. Idaho created the planet's first ski chairlift to fix a railroad issue. Sun Valley, Idaho's path to pioneering the contemporary ski resort, and chairlift didn't start with snow sports. It stemmed from train business woes. In 1936, the Union Pacific Railroad aimed to boost winter passenger traffic on its lines, so they dispatched an agent, Austrian Count Felix Schafgotsch, westward to scout an ideal ski destination. He zeroed in on central Idaho's Sawtooth Valley, proclaiming it the best spot he'd encountered. The railroad constructed the resort from the ground up, but soon hit a key hurdle, getting skiers uphill without hassle. Union Pacific engineer James Curran tackled it, drawing inspiration not from slopes, but from a rigging he'd observed on Central American banana boats, a cable and hook setup for hoisting heavy produce aboard vessels. He transformed that idea into the inaugural ski chairlift, debuting at Sun Valley in December 1936 and revolutionizing winter recreation forever. Fact 15. Ernest Hemingway resided and passed away in Idaho. In 1959, the Nobel-winning writer Ernest Hemingway relocated to Ketchum, Idaho, a cozy mountain village next to Sun Valley. He'd first explored the region in the 1930s after the resort's inaugural promoter lured stars there, and the scenery had enchanted him ever since. From his Ketchum residence, overlooking the Big Wood River and nearby peaks, he penned sections of multiple books. His later time there involved worsening health and intensifying depression. On July 2, 1961, Hemingway took his own life at that Ketchum house. He's interred in the local cemetery. A brief stroll from Sun Valley Lodge, site of some of his finest writing. The home where he died remains standing. In a surprising twist, Idaho framed the start and end of one of 20th century American literature's most influential careers. Fact 14. Idaho hosts the globe's sole gem-quality star garnets beyond India. The Idaho Panhandle National Forest boasts a rare geological claim. Near St. Marie's, at the Emerald Creek Garnet area, star garnets, rich purple crystals, dot the soil. When faceted and buffed by lapidaries, they reveal a 4- or 6-pointed star shimmering across the gem's face. This asterism effect arises from tiny titanium oxide needles oriented within the crystal. Such premium star garnets appear in just 2 earthly spots, India and Idaho's Panhandle. Experts link them via deep-time plate tectonics. The stones trace back to the supercontinent Gondwana, which split apart eons ago, scattering similar formations. Nowadays, visitors can grab a permit, bring a pail, and sift Emerald Creek's gravel all day for treasures forged when Idaho and India formed one landmass. Fact 13. A Japanese-American community emerged and faded in Idaho's desert amid World War II. In August 1942, after President Roosevelt's Executive Order 9066, authorities established the Minidoka War Relocation Center across 33,000 acres of south-central Idaho's sagebrush flats. Throughout the conflict, about 13,000 Japanese Americans, mostly from Seattle, Portland, and Pacific Northwest enclaves, were confined there against their will. At its height, Minidoka ranked as Idaho's third biggest city. Residents braved winter chills down to 30 below zero, summer scorchers up to 115 degrees, ferocious dust gales, stifling tar paper shacks, and the erasure of family businesses spanning generations. Even so, over 900 Minidoka men enlisted in the U.S. Armed Forces. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team, featuring plenty of Minidoka volunteers, earned a reputation as the most decorated outfit of its kind in U.S. military history, collecting over 18,000 personal honors, even while their relatives stayed locked up in Idaho's desert. Fact 12. Idaho leads the American West with the highest number of ghost towns, and plenty of them feel like time has frozen still. The mining rushes from the 1860s into the early 1900s sprang up hundreds of communities practically overnight, only for them to vanish just as swiftly once the ore dried up. Today, the state counts more than 100 verified ghost towns, including some of the best preserved ones in the Panhandle's Silver Valley. Silver City in Owyhee County stands out as Idaho's top preserved ghost town, a virtually intact Victorian mining village where people can stroll through authentic structures dating back to the 1860s. At its height, the Owyhee Mountains yielded over $60 million in silver and gold. Certain buildings in Silver City still hold original furnishings, gear, and personal items abandoned by folks who simply left. Reaching the town requires navigating a rugged dirt road that shuts down completely during winter, likely the key reason so much remains untouched. Fact 11. The Fosbury Flop got perfected right here in Idaho. At the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, obscure U.S. high jumper Dick Fosbury soared over 7 feet 4.25 inches with a radical move unseen before in global meets. Instead of facing forward in the classic straddle position, he flipped backward, curving his back across the bar and dropping onto his neck and shoulders. The audience jeered at first, then roared in approval as he claimed gold and an Olympic record. Fosbury eventually made his home in Ketchum, Idaho, living there for years, with the technique turning into his signature legacy. Now, every top high jumper worldwide relies on the Fosbury Flop. No serious athlete sticks to the outdated method. Fact 10. Napoleon Dynamite got shot entirely in Idaho, and locals had zero clue. In 2003, director Jared Hess filmed his first full-length movie almost completely in Preston, Idaho, a quiet farming spot in the state's southeast. Made for about $400,000, Napoleon Dynamite pulled in over $46 million globally and turned into one of the early 2000s most meme-worthy comedies. Hess himself went to Preston High School, and the shoot tapped genuine local spots like the school, farms, streets, and feed store. Back then, townsfolk had divided feelings. Some saw it as mocking their rural ways, while others loved it. These days, Preston runs a yearly Napoleon Dynamite Festival. The high school gym from the iconic dance pools and tourists nonstop, and the place has fully owned an identity from a flick cheaper to produce than most U.S. homes. Fact 9. The Pulaski axe has rescued more wildland firefighters' lives than any other gear, and it originated in Idaho. Wildland crews everywhere pack a Pulaski variant. The axe adds hybrid dreamed up by Idaho Forest Service Ranger Edward Pulaski after the 1910 Great Fire. He crafted it for carving fire lines and clearing brush to best manage flames. It soon became standard for the whole U.S. Forest Service and spread to firefighting outfits worldwide. The design has hardly budged in over 100 years because it nailed perfection on the first go. Pulaski got next to nothing financially for his creation. The government rolled it out, and manufacturers cranked them up without much say from him. He wrapped up his days as a low-key ranger in Idaho. Firefighters globally grab his tool daily, yet most have no clue about its inventor or roots. Fact 8. Idaho's Panhandle shelters some of North America's final inland rainforests. Up in the northern Panhandle by Priest Lake, massive old-growth western red cedars form a temperate rainforest like nothing else in the inland west. The Roosevelt Grove of ancient cedars outside Nordman features trees guessed at over 1,000 years old, with trunks so huge that several grown-ups linking arms can scarcely wrap around them. Idaho's biggest western red cedar, the Idaho champion tree close to Elk River, towers at 177 feet high, with a trunk diameter nearing 18 feet, and dates back over 3,000 years. It started sprouting prior to the Norman conquest of England. These giants endure thanks to Pacific moisture channeled inland via the Columbia River system, generating the humidity needed for a coastal-like forest environment far from any ocean. Ecologically, it's Pacific Northwest territory, even though it's squarely in Idaho geographically. Fact 7. The St. Joe River holds the title of the world's highest navigable waterway. Stretching 140 miles across northern Idaho's woodlands before spilling into Lake Coeur d'Alene, this river claims a unique global distinction. Its mouth sits at 2,129 feet above sea level, the highest starting point for any navigable river worldwide. Vessels can navigate its full course by definition, flowing amid thick, old-growth woods where the headwaters offer top-tier fly fishing in the Pacific Northwest. For years, log drives sent timber barreling down from the northern Panhandle forest to mills at the outlet. These days, it's famed for whitewater rafting, angling, and stunning views, all while quietly owning a global elevation record few beyond Idaho even know about. Fact 6. Idaho boasts one of the nation's wildest temperature swings. Records in the state capture highs and lows that would stun most folks in a single location. The peak hit 118 degrees Fahrenheit in Orofino's Clearwater Canyon on July 28, 1934. The bottom plunged to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit at Island Park in the Eastern Highlands on January 18, 1943. That's a staggering 178 degrees historical spread, among the broadest for any U.S. state. The brutal cold pooled in the Island Park Basin from frigid air draining off Yellowstone's plateau during calm winter nights, mimicking a giant freezer. Meanwhile, the scorching heat baked in a sunken river gorge where arid conditions and canyon channeling produced Arizona-like scorchers atypical for the Pacific Northwest. Both records from one state, like contrasting worlds. Fact 5. Idaho clings to North America's largest remnant of western white pine, just barely. This species once ruled commercial logging in northern Idaho and nearby areas, with the Panhandle hosting the biggest old-growth groves in its range. Early 1900s logging boomed industrially, railroads hauling out the massive logs. then white pine blister rust, a fungus brought unintentionally from Europe circa 1910, ravaged populations across the West for decades. Idaho still has the continent's top remaining stand, though it's a shadow of former glory. University of Idaho programs have spent years on conservation and breeding rust-resistant trees to revive a species that shaped the region. Fact 4. The Boise River slices right through a big city, shaping its whole character around the waterway. Boise stands out as one of America's rare state capitals, with a serious whitewater river cutting through downtown, and locals have crafted a lifestyle embracing it. The 25-mile Boise River Greenbelt forms a seamless trail along both sides, linking parks, communities, and outdoor spots across the city and beyond. Tubing from Lucky Peak Reservoir down through town has turned into Idaho's ultimate summer ritual, pulling in crowds by the tens of thousands on hot weekends. Remarkably, this same river powers a vital irrigation network across southern Idaho, so the waterfolks tube on downtown doubles as lifelines for farms blanketing the Snake River Plain to the south. Fact 3. Idaho's slice of Yellowstone dwarfs what outsiders imagine. Even more bizarrely, just 1% of Yellowstone National Park lies inside Idaho's boundaries. Yet that narrow strip, reachable from Ashton, Idaho, along Cave Falls Road, encompasses some of the park's most isolated and under-visited spots. Tucked in this remote pocket, the Falls River Basin boasts Cave Falls, Yellowstone's broadest waterfall spanning 250 feet, while the encircling lodgepole pine woodlands draw only a fraction of the tourists swarming Wyoming's entry points. The true geological star, however, hides right under this Idaho slice. The Yellowstone hotspot's magma chamber stretches below it, and directly north across the border, the Madison Plateau harbors some of the freshest volcanic elements across the entire Yellowstone network. Here, lava flows remain remarkably young. The Earth's crust is shallow, geothermal heat pulses actively, and separation from Wyoming's famed geysers does zilch to dial back the seething volcanic power underneath. Fact 2. If Idaho's mountains got shaved flat, they'd blanket Texas. Experts in geography and engineering have crunched the numbers. If you could magically level every peak, gorge, escarpment, and ridgeline in Idaho, smooshing all that towering elevation into a single plane, you'd end up with a footprint roughly matching Texas in size. Within its 83,000 square miles, Idaho crams in a mind-boggling volume of landscape. It features 7 separate mountain chains topping 10,000 feet, chasms plunging thousands of feet from nearby plateaus, and waterways carving through such brutal country that whole river networks stayed uncharted into the late 1800s. That layered topography explains why Idaho's people hug a handful of river valleys and pathways. The bulk of the land is just too sheer, too cut off, or too wildly sculpted for lasting human outposts. Idaho isn't vacant. It's overflowing with up and down drama that leaves folks clinging to whatever level ground exists. Fact 1. Idaho's name sprang from a swindler's imagination, and it took 30 years for anyone to catch on. For much of the 1800s, folks swore the name Idaho came from a Native American term translating to Gem of the Mountains, or Land of Many Waters. Lawmakers echoed it, papers ran with it, and the territory's government adopted it wholesale. Historians later exposed the truth. The term was cooked up around 1860 by a mining promoter called George M. Willing. He pitched it as an authentic native word while pushing Congress to dub the new Colorado Territory __4__lawmakers double-checked with real speakers of indigenous tongues, turned up zero proof it existed anywhere, and nixed it for Colorado. By then, though, the fake label had spread through newsprint to the Pacific Northwest lands up north, and when its bogus roots finally surfaced, the name was too entrenched to yank. America's 43rd state bears a moniker one guy invented, tried to peddle deceptively, and then helplessly saw slapped on a different chunk of turf. Welcome to Idaho.